Hi, everybody. I'm calling this recording Galapagos Travel Tips and an Inspiring Story. So I went to the Galapagos Islands for 9 days, including travel, um, on February 22nd. So last week in February, basically. I would say to anyone traveling to the Galapagos, that is the perfect time to go. I didn't plan ahead whatsoever. I just had dumb luck. Why do I say that's the perfect time to go? According to the locals here, it's low season. So that means there's quite a bit of availability of hotels and restaurants and tours. But for me, the biggest advantage of going in February was that it's the hot season. Summer and winter, a little bit confused here at the equator, but we'll just call it the hot, rainy season. And that means both the air temperature and the water temperature were perfect. I'm someone who gets cold easily, and I had been warned by friends and family who had gone to the Galapagos that the water temperature can be really uncomfortably cold because of the Humboldt current coming up from Antarctica. So I was a little bit trepidatious. I did wear a wetsuit, not so much for temperature, but to protect against jellyfish and other things that might sting or hurt me. And so with that body, quite a thin wetsuit on, it was perfect. I was able to stay in the water for well over an hour on multiple occasions without any problem whatsoever. The Galapagos is very safe. So I was told by the tour company that arranged my tour and many of the guides that I met on the different islands that I could easily go about by myself without any fear. And I think the reason for that is because it's very obviously a very tourist-oriented place. There's a lot of, um, we'll say, white people or people from different countries walking around at all times of day or night. And if something does happen, it's hard for the perpetrator to escape, right? Because it's a series of really small islands. So that was a nice feeling. Um, I would recommend that you download Google Translate for your language and Spanish before you go. Although some people speak enough English to get by, many, for example, taxi drivers do not. And I was, I'm on crutches, so I was relying on a lot of helpers. Many of them didn't speak English, and Google Translate was really, really helpful. In the past, I had considered going to the Galapagos and had been told by others that it's really wavy and rough. The water is rough. And that worried me a bit because, I am prone to seasickness. And the beautiful little ear patches are no longer available in Canada. So that was one reason I hadn't actually gone to the Galapagos before. But traveling there from mainland Ecuador was a totally different experience. So I wasn't going on a live-aboard boat or yacht trip. I flew to the Galapagos from the mainland. That's only like a 200 and I think it was like around a $200 plane flight, very inexpensive. I stayed at uh, land-based hotels every single night, and the cost of them ranges from about $40 a night, of course, up into the super high luxury range. I stayed at very comfortable, adequate places for under $100 a night US. Um, so coming from Canada, I had really never heard about these options. You think you have to book a fancy trip from Canada, but actually, cost-wise and comfort-wise, I just went on TripAdvisor, and that's how I found the tour company called Guiding Galapagos that I ended up going with. They were amazing. They booked all my hotels. They booked all my day trips. So I went on a day trip every single day. And they booked all my transportation because I'm on crutches. I couldn't walk to the restaurant and to the ferry terminal, etc. They took care of all of that for a much, much lower price than I would have paid if I had booked everything from Canada. Probably the highlight. So those are the practicalities. Now, what about the experience? So the highlight was definitely being able to be up close to the animals. They literally have no fear. It almost felt like I was invisible. So I would hobble on my crutches past some, say, booby nests with chicks, and they wouldn't even flinch. They wouldn't even turn their head to notice me. It's like I'm part of the landscape. And that was amazing because it allowed, like in Canada, when you see animals in a national park, they typically move away if you get too close, right? If you're inside their comfort zone. But here, you're told by the national park guides who accompany you everywhere that you need to be 3 meters away. And as long as you're 3 meters away, it just gives the impression that you're not really bothering their daily routine whatsoever. So it's a very comfortable feeling to be there viewing these incredible animals, mostly birds, incredibly colorful iguanas, and then in the water, sea turtles, um, so many different kinds of colored fish, most of which I don't know the names of. I saw sharks, different kinds of rays, stingrays and eagle rays. Um, and one of the most fun experiences, 3 different occasions, I was snorkeling with sea lions. So it's usually the younger sea lions that seem interested in humans, and they just come boom, like they're going to hit you in the head. And then at the very last minute, they, sharply swerve to the side. It's like a game for them. And it was a fun game. And I have to tell you, they won every single round because even though I knew they wouldn't hurt me, I couldn't help my reflex to turn my head in kind of a protective gesture. It was a lot of fun. I want to end this with a tale of inspiration. So I was on crutches in the Galapagos, and although mostly I was able to focus on what an amazing time I was having and how incredibly fortunate I was to be there, of course, I would have liked to have done more. I would have liked to have done some of the hikes, etc. My very last day on the little boat that took us snorkeling, and they're usually a full day trip, so you kind of get to know the people on your excursion, and they're often from all over the world. And I met this young man. I'm guessing he was about 30. He was from the UK. He was traveling with his wife, and he had one of the most positive attitudes I have encountered in a while. He had a smile on his face. He was like courteous and kind of interacting with ease with everybody on the boat. Everybody seemed to want to talk to him and get his attention. He told me that he and his wife had just spent a few weeks in the Antarctic, some time in the southern Andes, which is how you get to the Antarctic. They were just finishing a month-long trip to the Galapagos, and after they finished there, they're flying to Easter Island for a period of time before flying home. What made this stand out, because of course I've come across a lot of world travelers in the Galapagos and other places, is that this young man was a paraplegic and he was in a wheelchair. He seemed so confident inspiring. So he had to rely on several people to lift him in and out of his wheelchair and to lift him and his wheelchair in and out of every boat. We were on tenders to get from the dock to the boat, and then from the boat to the dock when we landed, and then in and out of the boat a couple times to go snorkeling. And I'm sure the people helping him were not trained. And I'm sure, they didn't do everything right. And I'm sure it was a little bit rough at times. But he never complained. And it's like he imbued the people helping him with his good cheer and confidence, and it all went smoothly. I talked to him about how it is for him to be traveling to some of these incredible places and not being able to walk and do hikes. And his answer is really going to stick with me. He said, so he and his wife have a camper van. And believe it or not, so we were able to kind of bond about camper van life. And they're considering whether to ship their camper van over to North America so that they can travel around all the beautiful places there. And that's when I asked him, how he thought it would be being in a wheelchair in these beautiful places and maybe not being able to take full advantage of them. And he just said, we drive. When we get to a beautiful place, we pull over, we enjoy it, we stay there as long as we want. And sometimes that may mean camping overnight, for example. And he said, and then when we're done, we move on to the next location. I didn't get the sense, and I'm sure he's gone through his own process of grief. It would be impossible for that not to be part of his journey. But he's arrived at a place where he's truly focused on what he can do, the good fortune he has, the decisions he's made. He and his wife both quit their, we'll call it day jobs to do this travel. And like me, they're working virtually. So they're traveling very slowly because several days a week they need to be working. And then he said they do excursions maybe 1 or 2 days a week. So he also said he has to pace himself because of his health challenges. So we kind of were able to understand each other around pacing. And I'm going to call it slow travel. So, there's the slow food movement. I think this is the slow travel movement. I met one other person over a year ago now who's also excelling at slow travel. So, some of the places that I visited in 2 or 3 days, she would stay for 2 or 3 weeks. And every day she would go out for little, maybe to the nearest town, maybe for groceries, maybe for water, maybe for a little hike. She was an elderly woman with a small dog with her and an aging camping apparatus that needed frequent attention. So she just wasn't in a rush. And I thought, you know what? As I go forward with my travel, whatever that looks like, I'm going to embrace this slow travel movement. I think it would be perfect for our community. There's no rush, especially if you're retired and you can find reasonably priced accommodation, for example, your own camper or your own van. There's no rush. You can take as long as you need. I would love to hear about your travel experiences, especially if you're traveling with hidden disabilities, and what you've done to assist you in your travel so that you've been able to get the most out of it possible. Talk soon.